New survey says most Americans now see the middle class as out of reach.
$3,968.20 per month. That's how much it'll cost me, my husband, and my 3 kids to have health insurance a month.
I will never be able to afford a house. I will never be able to afford a house.
At this point, I seriously think Gen Z is just screwed. In 2026, Gen Z just simply earns way less than it costs to survive. The average Gen Zer makes about $25K a year, which is around $21,000 a month, and spends basically all of it on bills or rent. Nearly half of Gen Z runs out of money before the end of the month ends, and that's not just budgeting, that's just survival at that point. And don't get me started on student loan debt, because the average Gen Zer also has about $30K of student loan debt on top of all of that. We are spending more on essentials than any other previous generation, and wages just keep going down, and the cost of living just keeps going up. You're not failing in life. The system is just completely f***ed us over. Budgeting does help, don't get me wrong. I still use mine to budget and track all of my expenses, but the system is still failing us.
The world is burning, the rent's too damn high, and it feels like you could never get ahead. But what if I told you you may not be as behind as you think you are? Let's have a conversation. It's become really easy to pick up your phone and scroll through social media and have the shit ruin your day and throw you into a Mortal Kombat pit of depression. And it makes sense why. I mean, it seems like everybody's a millionaire, traveling country to country every other month, buying new houses, cars, clothes, the whole nine. Everybody has a picture-perfect life, it seems. But we all know things aren't always what they seem. But even knowing that, sometimes we're still left asking ourselves, why can't I afford a house? Why can't I afford kids? Why can't I afford a vacation? Where did I go wrong? How the fuck is this person making so much money at age 20? Nigga, maybe I should sell crack. And to add insult to injury, it doesn't help when you have content creators who've built their entire reputation around being this figure that has a lot of money to spend, to the point where you become unrelatable and complain about the price drop of a luxury watch that could normally be a down payment on a $300,000 home that you already have multiple of. It's like, bro, niggas can't find work, niggas is getting laid off. Nobody gives a fuck about that shit right now, bro. Gas is $5. It just comes off like the luxury isn't luxury enough, or my lobster is too buttery type shit. It's all along those lines. And he's not a special case. There's several creators that are in their own world that they've created due to their success and work ethic that have managed to financially elevate themselves enough to make such comments. But coming back down to life and back to reality, things are obviously becoming more expensive, and the lives we've seen our parents and grandparents manage to live off a standard 9-to-5 at a convenience store isn't the life a lot of us can live today. We're told go to school, work hard, buy a house, and start a family, which sounds good until you realize the housing market is completely in shambles. Now, yeah, social media has a role to play, and a lot of us are comparing ourselves to people's highlight reels, but at the same time, you hear people having these same conversations with the same concerns.
This is the most unaffordable housing market that America has ever seen. Let's use this home as an example, which is the American dream for a lot of people like me and my fiance. We do pretty well for ourselves, we earn in the 6 figures, and we've always wanted this. But then this happened. $553,000 for this house. You may be thinking to yourself, well, that's not so bad. Let me show you. This home that was sold for $553,000, that was listed for $489,000, sold for $337,000 back in 2018. This home in 2025 with a $553,000 sale price, 6% down and a 6.5% rate, gives you a payment of $3,716. But back in 2018 with a $337,000 sale price, 6% down and a 4.5% rate, gives you a payment of $1,800.
I cannot afford Florida anymore. I just looked at my budget and my electric bill for December, which in Florida, mind you, we don't use the AC very much when it comes to December, okay? My electric bill for this December was more expensive than my electric bill from August of 2020, one of the hottest months of the year. Make that make sense. I used way less electricity in December than I do in August of any given year, and somehow my bill is now higher. My electric bills have more than doubled in the course of 5 years, and also my water bill has more than doubled, and not to mention the rates of my insurance, property taxes, yada yada yada. It's all just gone up and up and up.
I just need somebody else to tell me that they're living paycheck to paycheck and putting themselves into credit card debt out of necessity, not because of fun. I am 28 years old. I work a decent paying job. I love my job. I make good income. We have no kids, me and my fiance, and we're still barely scraping by. Our bills are paid, but we can't save any money.
So I'm British and I'm living in the US. I'm a mother of two, and I'm just unlocking all of these cultural differences between our countries that I used to think was very similar. Very much not so. So I've just started a business and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to need the kids in daycare. Not full-time, just a couple of days a week to give me a break. And also my daughter's 3, so, it's healthy for her to be in some sort of schooling and she loves it. $2,200 for my son, $1,800 for my daughter. Part-time.
I can't afford a house. I can't afford daycare, a car, groceries. I can't afford to miss a paycheck. And when millions of people are concerned about the same thing, it gets to a point. And this is where housing becomes a huge part of the discussion because owning a home is a wealth accelerator. It's an investment in your family's future across generations that Gen Z and millennials are being priced out of. As of right now, the United States is estimated to be millions of homes short of what's actually needed for the population. And this creates many other issues. I think we all understand that the average family most likely can't afford the average house. So it's a seller's market, which means there's more potential buyers and renters competing for homes. And when demand exceeds supply,
yesterday's price is not today's price.
So what the fuck are we supposed to buy? Housing affordability is measured using house prices relative to income, and the value of homes have generally increased faster than wages. So it's a little less about them being expensive and more about them being expensive relative to what people are earning. And even if prices magically stopped going up, you still have the financing being expensive, and that increases the monthly payments you have to make, which is why you hear people who bought their home years ago talking about how fortunate they are to have gotten a low interest rate, and also why they may be scared to sell their home right now because rates are high as hell. And if you're thinking about saving up for a down payment, you're going to need about $30,000 because that's the median. And that could take years to save up depending on your source of income and your location. Not to mention economists consider a healthy house price to income ratio to be about 2.6, and today it's at around 5 times what the typical household income earns in a year. And while we're struggling to put together all the pieces to purchase a home, somebody who's bought a home in 1990 for $100K tells you that you're not working hard enough. What we also see is more adults living with their parents, specifically about 49% under 30 years old to be exact, according to research and analysis done by the Federal Reserve. If you're not from America, it's actually common to live with your parents until you get married off, but here in America, we do things backwards, so just roll with it. But from the perspective of someone that lives in the United States, this adds to the whole feeling behind mindset that we have. The formula we were given isn't working at all, because apparently only 33% of 27-year-olds own a home today, when about 40% of baby boomers owned a home at the same age. They benefited from a completely different economy than we have today. And this is where the problems really begin, because if you can't afford to buy a house, you still need somewhere to live, right? So you can just rent, right? Sure, why not?
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
Except that's fucked up too, because the millions of people that would have normally been homeowners by now are still in the rental market and competing for the same apartments everybody else is trying to get. And that brings us back to the issue of pricing. When demand goes up, so does competition and so does prices. See, housing is considered a cost burden when it exceeds 30% of your income. The problem is, millions of renters exceed this threshold, with many spending 50% or more of their income on housing. And with every dollar you make going towards rent, that's a dollar you take away from your ability to save for an emergency, a down payment, retirement, and children. It's a sick cycle that's hard to get out of, and the median rent growth isn't stopping and probably never will without some major policy set in place. So as of right now, people are renting longer because purchasing a single-family home is out of reach. And that's a sad and angering realization that millennials and Gen Z have come to. And to be real, most of us aren't losing sleep because we don't own a house. We're losing sleep because every milestone that's supposed to come after owning a house is getting pushed back further and further. For example, we see this play out when there's conversations around wanting children in marriage. two milestones that have been entrenched in societies across the world for centuries. Procreation is why we're here. It's why you're watching my video on YouTube right now. Like and subscribe. And it's also something that's been dwindling in several different countries, not just the United States over the past ever so many years. I mean, just put two and two together. If you're struggling to provide a roof over your head, how can you provide for a family, let alone start one? Just having a child can put you thousands of dollars in debt. And you have to raise the child if you're not a shit parent. And on average, according to reports done in 2015 by the USDA, the cost of raising one child in the United States of America is over $230,000. And adjusted for inflation, many estimates put that number north of $300,000 from birth to age 18. Basically, having a child is like buying a house in a weird dystopian way. But if you're fortunate enough, that's not counting anything your parents take care of after you're legally an adult, because being a parent usually doesn't stop at age 18. But it does usually start at childcare as soon as the doctor cuts the cord, because reality hits fast as hell. The grocery bill goes up. Healthcare expenses go up. You'll eventually need a bigger living space, potentially a bigger car. And if you aren't a stay-at-home parent, don't live close to family, and you can't afford a nanny, daycare is the only choice, and on average, that costs about $1,200 a month or more depending on where you're located. And hopefully you're not located in DC, because families can spend over $100,000 in childcare before the child even steps foot in kindergarten. In fact, families in DC often spend around 25 to 30% of their household income on infant childcare alone. You're paying rent twice. It's a second mortgage. And when you take that into consideration, it's no wonder why Gen Z and millennials are delaying having children or having fewer than planned. Just look at the data. From the year 1990 to 2023, the birth rate declined 14%, and total fertility rates declined 22% over the same time period. It's been a consistent downward trend. Many women are also having children later in life, in their 30s and 40s, rather than their 20s. Super large families of 8 to 10 kids are extremely rare now. I can honestly not even fathom having that many siblings. My mom has 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and I have no idea how that water bill got paid. And I don't know how anybody could afford it today. So not only has owning a home been pushed back, having children has been pushed back as well. And that brings us to marriage, because when marriage is pushed back, usually children are too. About 72% of adults here in the US were married in 1960. About 50% are married today, a 22% drop-off. And when we look at marriage rates for the ages 25 to 29 in 1970, around 76 to 86% had married. And by 2008, that dropped to around 43 to 46%. In layman's terms, the marriage rate was cut in half compared to previous generations. And when researchers asked young adults why they were delaying marriage, one of the most common responses was that they didn't feel like they could afford it. They weren't financially ready to take that step. If you can't afford a house, if rent's kicking your ass, if daycare is a second mortgage, and raising a child costs as much as a starter home by today's standards, delaying marriage looks less like a choice and more like basic math. But it doesn't stop there, right? Because every dollar going toward housing, rent, and children is a dollar that's not being invested for the future. And basic math is also telling us that a lot of millennials and Gen Z are worried about if their retirement is going to be delayed, less secure, and will require us to work longer. One of the biggest generational changes is how retirement is funded. Our parents and grandparents were more likely to have access to traditional pensions through their employers, while younger workers are much more dependent on 401ks, IRAs, and personal investing. And this means that you as an individual have more responsibility for your own retirement. So if you're good at investing, good for you. But if you're bad at it or you don't do it at all, you're shit out of luck. And that dynamic is a very different deal than showing up to work for 30 years and knowing that a pension check is around the corner when you retire. A lot of us are working with the understanding that there is damn near nothing at the end of the tunnel. The safety net that was promised to us feels like a lie, like we've been duped into lining the pockets of CEOs as they become more wealthy while our own worth keeps dwindling. But I don't know. Maybe it's the avocado toast. Maybe Kevin O'Leary is right. Maybe $28 for lunch is too fucking egregious. We should just starve our way to wealth, you know? We were told to pay into Social Security, go to college and get more degrees, work hard to set yourself up for retirement, and eventually you'd catch up. But right as you start to get close, they move the goalpost. The people who benefited from an old system keep acting like the rules never changed. And then they ask us why we aren't winning the game.
I can't eat. I'm broke.
broke, nigga. I'm broke. And you got the power to change that.
They're making the rules up as they go to enrich themselves, and it's essentially killing the American dream for a lot of people. A lot of us are forced into gig work or a second part-time job just to make extra money to achieve some level of comfort. I've been there too. I've done Instacart and DoorDash. I know what that shit feels like, and it sucks that this is what life has become for so many people. At some point, a budget won't help you. Most people can't coupon, cut, side hustle, and sacrifice their way into buying a house. All of these problems connect to each other. If you can't afford a house, you rent longer. When you rent longer, it's harder to save. When it's harder to save, having children is delayed. When children are delayed, usually marriage is too. And when you have less money left over, you have less to save for retirement. And that list doesn't include healthcare expenses, car prices going crazy, car insurance going crazy, and student loans too, which are destroying the lives of so many graduates before they even get a chance at life as an adult. This is why these traditional milestones have been delayed for us. And that's the part that pisses off so many people. Yeah, things may have got more expensive, but they want us to act like that doesn't matter. Like the cost of a house didn't just explode. Like childcare isn't ridiculous. Like wages kept up with inflation. The disconnect there is crazy, but they act like us not grinding hard enough is the problem. So if that's the case, are we really behind? Because personally, I think that we're comparing ourselves to standards and a timeline that wasn't built for the current economy. It doesn't mean that you failed if you haven't reached these milestones yet, but somehow we've been convinced that just because we don't have these things that we're behind in life or failures. But I've stopped by to tell you, we are running a completely different race than generations before us. We can only do the best we can with the economy that we currently have, not the one people keep pretending still exists. Thanks for watching.
The reason why you guys could afford houses was
we
because
worked our ass off and bought it.
Okay, but you're trying to say that we don't work.
No,
Everything's very expensive.
An idiot because you're living in a house paying all that rent.
Okay.
All right? All you got to do is you're
right.
paying more rent than you would a mortgage.
Okay, how am I going to get a mortgage?
Well, you save up your money and...
How? I'm paying the rent.
Oh, my God. What a freaking asshole.
Like